Hi, I'm Nat. Red leather, yellow leather. I'm sorry, I don't have chairs for you. No, I do. This is so rude of me.
Welcome to Food for Thought. A podcast where we talk about meals over business. Each episode, I speak to owners, operators, managers and marketeers about everything that makes the restaurant industry tick. I'm Dan Stock. Join me as I delve into the business of restaurants in the yummiest way through lots of delicious food. Today, I am absolutely delighted to welcome Nat Paull to the show. Nat is the owner-baker of Beatrix Bakes, one of Melbourne's most loved bakeries. When it opened in 2011, Nat quickly found fans and fame for her take on traditional country bakery treats, and today has transformed the bakery into an online store, selling whole cakes that consistently sell out. She's the author of a best-selling bakebook of the same name, has appeared on MasterChef, sharing some of the secrets to her incredible creations, and later this month will embark on her biggest catering gig yet, cooking brunch for 1,600 friends in Melbourne's Treasury Gardens as part of the Melbourne Food and Wine Festival, world's longest brunch. Nat, welcome.
Thanks for having me on today, Dan. This is so lovely.
Absolutely great to have you here in the
old shop.
Yes, it's a real treat to be here. But before we jump into talking about building a baking empire, let's talk quickly about restaurants.
Yes.
Have you got what was the most memorable restaurant meal you have eaten anywhere in the world?
It's so hard. Like eating at restaurants is kind of my top hobby in life, apart from over everything else. So the first one that comes to mind is that, and I don't know if anyone remembers the chef Philip Searle, who had Oasis Ceros in Sydney in the 80s and 90s, I think early 90s. He was this incredible chef. He was like an artist and a chef. He sort of started to bring Asian flavours into classic, French cooking. So innovative. His desserts were incredible, which is probably why I gravitated towards his food.
Yes.
But I never got to eat there, but he relocated to Blue Mountains and opened Vulcans, this beautiful restaurant in the country up in Blackheath. And I went up there for lunch one summer, and the meal was incredible. I just remember eating this beautiful poached or steamed eggplant, which was the first time I'd ever had steamed eggplant. It was so silky soft and with beautiful calamari and all these like Asian flavours. And then this like pot roasted lamb shoulder with turmeric and all these like beautiful warm spices. And then I got to have his famous dessert, which was a checkerboard ice cream cake.
Wow. Tell us about that.
So it is... it's a border of star anise ice cream, and then it has a checkerboard of pineapple sorbet and the star anise ice cream again. In between each checkerboard or checker square is a thin painting of licorice, melted licorice, that sets and divides all the checkerboards. It is the most incredible dessert ever. Yeah. And so that is just like lives in my mind all the time. And I also had this like really simple quince and coconut cake, but not simple when Philip Searle does it. And that was also incredible. And I've tried to recreate it, but I don't have his magic.
You can't quite nail it.
No. It was so good. So that is my number one best thing I've ever eaten. Yeah, best ever meal in my life.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the fact that you haven't been able to reverse engineer it means that it's pretty
it's special. Yeah.
Because you've been baking. It says a little blurb on your site. So you baked your first butter cake when you were age 7. Was that really when the
it was
baking
really
bug
hit? I just remember the book that I got from the library. It was this like black and white sort of like janky little recipe book showing how to like beat butter and sugar by hand. And I tried to like get my friends to come over and do it with me because I was so excited that this was going to be like an amazing experience. They did not find it as exciting as I did. But I just knew after that moment that it was like, that's what I wanted to do. So it was just like ingesting as much, books as I could and trying to learn as much.
So through your young childhood, you were sort of in the kitchen, baking as a hobby.
Yep. And also like I had a real sweet tooth. So if you can't go out and buy them, like make them at home. Yes. Like that's like, needs a must kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so when was that moment that you transformed that into a career? Was that straight after school, or?
Yeah, so I did I was 15 years old and I did work experience at Bilson's restaurant in Sydney at the time, and worked in the kitchen there. I was terrible. I was so slow. I just did all the sections. Of course, I love the pastry section the most, doing like passion fruit soufflés and creme glazes. But yeah, when I left there after work experience, the chef said, Natalie, you'll never make it in this industry because you work like you're on drugs. And I think he meant like the slow drugs, not the fast drugs. So that was pretty hurtful for my little 15-year-old ego, but I kept at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah.
And look today. So always in pastries. That was the passion, and that's where you
always.
You
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so how did that transform into opening Beatrix in 2011?
I think I'd had a couple of goes at trying to have a career in cooking and in baking in particular. So I'd run a wholesale baking kitchen where we just like delivered, made beautiful things and delivered them to cafes around town. But you're kind of working in a box the whole day and not really sort of seeing the customers and not having those interactions and not working as seasonally, like not being able to change the menu as often as you might like. So I tried, and then I think I got a bit burnt out. So I went and did a couple of years doing admin at Swinburne University, just doing spreadsheets and colour coding for teachers and trying to be like helpful front of house kind of person. And then the bug just got me again. The business plan started to grow. I got a name. I sort of realised I wanted to keep baking, and then my partner found this place on the corner, and it was just like, yep. And then it was like, we're going to do this again.
We're going to do it.
One last roll of the dice.
Yeah. And a pretty amazing role where we are. It's on Queensbury Street in North Melbourne, but the back blocks of it. It's there's not thoroughfare. There's no foot traffic.
No foot traffic.
So how did that transform into such a successful business? Because that's sort of going against everything that anyone tells you to do.
Well, the only thing it really had going for it was parking. Yeah. It's so far away from everything. It had really good parking. I think it was a cautious step. Being risk averse, it was a small shop, so kind of lowish rent. So if it all fell apart, I wouldn't have, really lost a lot. I also had this feeling that if I did something good, people will come and find me. Like people found Philip Searle when he moved to Blackheath, that when you sort of, when you can do something that people really want a slice of, then they will find you. They will find you,
yeah. And for those who are listening outside of Melbourne, they might not really understand quite the hold this shop had on Melburnians. So when you announced that you were closing the shop front last year, there was a genuine outpouring of emotion and affection and grief. Even.
It was huge, yes.
What was that profound hold that you had?
I don't know, because you can't engineer that. You can't. I don't think there's anyone that's written a business plan that says, in 10 years' time, I want people to cry when I close the doors. That just doesn't happen. You go into this, you make what you make, and you hope that it resonates with people, and that's all I ever really wanted to do. And you hope that you create something special and not sort of cookie cutter and, that everyone else is doing. So it was quite shocking to me. I wasn't, I was dealing with my own grief about the decision, so I wasn't quite, I was really quite moved and shocked and everything about other people's grief and how much I meant to them. And it was, really beautiful and wondrous, all at the same time.
Did that response make you question the decision to close?
Never, ever. I think when you make big decisions, if they're easy, so if they're you've got a really crappy car that you've just got to get rid of, and that's a really easy decision, you've got to get rid of it. Or if you're making a big decision like leaving relationships and things like that are hard decisions, I think once you make the decision, there's some part of you that knows it's really right, and that just stays with you. So there was no part of me that wanted to. I knew it was the right thing to do. It had to be done. Yeah.
Do you remember what that very last slice or
I
piece
can't
of cake
remember because the last day was a blur.
Yeah.
It was just like I was taking my staff down the line and making, getting claps for all the kitchen team and stuff like that, introducing them to people, the customers and stuff. So it was a real blur, and lots of friends coming down to, for the last day. And then, so I can't even remember. I just know we baked our little hearts out for that last day. Yeah.
Was it quite a poignant moment when you closed that door for the last time?
Yes. Yeah. And then, but then I don't think grief really hits you until like 3 months down the track, and then you're sort of running on this adrenaline, and then 3 months down, you sort of realise actually, I did close that door. That's done now. Yeah.
You've obviously you've pivoted the business into an online store only.
Yep.
How does that feel? Because you don't have that visceral reaction or interaction with your customers anymore, and seeing the joy of them eating into a vanilla slice.
That's right.
So you're losing that, but you're sort of gaining so much more.
But I gain the middle part, which is where I get to show them the cake that we've made for them. So when they come and pick up, I get to hand their cake over to them, show them the cake, and get to hear their squeals of excitement. And I also get to have conversations with them again, which I don't think I'd had for a very long time at the shop, because everything was running so busy and so fast, and I was like this way, that way. And then to have that little moment with them and ask them how they're going and how's life. It really is like 2013, 2014 Beatrix, like the early days when I could actually really chat with my customers. So it's actually reconnected me with the business and with,
That's great.
my customers.
And I guess because the unique model that your customers are coming to pick up their cake, so that you're not just
right.
sending them off into the nether.
Yeah.
You still have that reaction, which or interaction,
which is just beautiful. Yeah.
But fundamentally, running an e-commerce business is different to
so
a
different.
Shopfront.
Yep.
What are some of the things you've learned that are some of the surprising things that you've had to navigate in creating?
Well, I think I think I'd realised that I actually had to start almost a new business. Like I had this, I think I was a bit deluded in thinking that just by carving off this retail section of the business, that we would just, move into this online shop. But actually you do have to talk about your products a bit differently, and how you talk about things on Instagram, which is one of the other nice things, is that I get to talk about the cakes and the products a little bit more intimately now. Mm-hmm. Before, I think we were just doing like lists of what we had, so it was very much, this is what we have today, this is what you can expect if you come down. Mm-hmm. But now I can actually talk about like all these nice things. I also realised that people with e-commerce, people ask a lot of the same questions, so it's really great collating all of those questions that are asked repetitively and putting them into like FAQs on the website and stuff like that, and really sort of addressing that, getting that information to your customers is really great. And you do sort of start a little bit from scratch again.
Instagram is obviously so powerful for you as the brand, and has been over the past decade. How did you go about sort of creating that bit of community at the start, and then maintaining that over the years as the brand and the business has grown? I am a real hack at Instagram. So if you're going to ask me about insights and interactions or some sort of like whatever, like the stats that they give you, I have no idea. No.
And people say, you should post at this time of the day or that time of the day. I'm like, I'm just going to post when I need to tell people what we've got, which is all we've ever done. Yep. And it's been a good way, especially during COVID, to tell people what we were doing, or, safety things we were putting in place. And so it's only ever been used as like for me to talk to my customers and to show them like some delicious things that we've been baking and what we're really excited about. So I really love it in that when it's when it doesn't have all that monetization on it and things like that, and you're not using it for this like marketing tool, when it's just an organic conversation between you and an audience.
Probably doesn't hurt that your cakes look beautiful
on
Instagram as well.
Very nice. They're very pretty.
You knew from a very young age, as we've said, that you wanted to be a baker, and you've made it a career for a lot of your life. What advice do you have for people who might later in life be thinking, oh, I really like cooking, I really like baking, that sounds great.
Yep.
I might like to do that because I'm not really sure about my job, colour
Yep.
coding
Yep.
spreadsheets
Yeah.
in the office.
Yeah.
What are some of the advice that you would have for someone going down that journey themselves?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I would say to anyone doing it is it is a craft, so it is repetitive. So at some point, if you think, like, if you want to make something successful, you're probably going to have to make a recipe many times in a day, because there's a lot of difference between making one red velvet cake at home and then making 100 over a week and making sure that they're all the same. And you have to love the repetition. You have to love every time you do something, being engaged in the process of making it, and then making and tinkering with it and looking out for the visual clues and getting it right every time. And I think about it like there's a great Joni Mitchell quote where she says, Van Gogh painted Starry, Starry Night, and he only did it once, but she's got to go out there and play A Case of You like a million times and sort of give it the same feeling. So it is like that. You have to, really stay connected to that craft and that repetition. You have to love repetition. Yeah. Yep.
Do you still have the same passion for baking as you did as a
I do now.
7-year-old?
Yes, I do now. I do now.
You've rekindled it?
I've rekindled it,
Yes.
yeah. To confess to everyone out there probably for the first time, is that I was pretty, I thought I'd fallen out of love with it, which is one of the reasons why I needed to stop. But in the last few months, I've really, regathered that creativity. It flows like melted honey now. It's great.
That's fantastic. Yeah. It must feel good to have that rekindled.
It's amazing.
Especially if you thought you'd lost it.
Yeah, because if you lose it, what do you do then?
Yes.
I go back to spreadsheets.
Yeah. No. You don't want to do that, so I'm glad we've still got you baking then. We said you are cooking for 1,600 people later this month as part of the Melbourne Food and Wine Festival's amazing World's Longest Brunch.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what's on the menu and how you even go about conceiving a menu that can be executed at scale, at such an extraordinary scale.
Yeah. Well, I was so delighted that Pat Nurse asked me to do this. And after our first chat, I was like, oh, what's my favourite breakfast? Okay, well, it's like probably like Eggs Benedict or something like that. And then I'm thinking, oh, that would be a nightmare to do for 1,600 people. And also something that's very common on breakfast menus, something that I love to have when I'm on holidays. That's my holiday breakfast of choice. So I went home and thought about it, and then I remembered in the early days here when it was Sarah Kerwin Walker and I just like doing our thing in the back, and she and I would just like raid the fridge, because we used to do sandwiches as well. We did lots of sandwiches. Yep. So we'd raid the fridge and get a couple of like snicky snacky bits out and have them. And they were usually high in salt, vinegar and like savouriness because of all the cake we were going to be eating during the day.
Yes.
So instead of a ploughman's lunch, I called it a cake woman's breakfast. And the team at Peter Rowland take this idea that I just like write down and send them some pictures of, and then they execute it to the nth degree, and it's incredible, just incredible. And I'm so delighted. And I've also got cake for breakfast, so you get to eat cheesecake for breakfast as well.
Beautiful. I'm already looking forward to that. But a salty breakfast, I think, is a lovely foil to that. So.
Yeah.
Was it fun creating that?
So much fun.
Seeing them come to, well, they haven't come to like quite yet.
So much fun. Well, I've seen the test plates, and I've eaten the test plates, and the test plates are delicious. Yeah. And some parts are even better than what I would be able to do with my skills. And I can't wait for everyone to eat that kind of like little, picking at a little breakfast plate of like delicious things. It's the best way to eat.
I couldn't agree more, and very much looking forward to trying that. Nat, you are in the process of writing your second bakebook.
Yes,
Is
the
that
manuscript.
correct?
The manuscript went in a couple of weeks ago. I had a big cry when I hit the send button because it just felt like it had been gestating for a long time, and I'd put it off a couple of times with COVID and just with shop things.
Sure.
And so doing the edits at the moment. First little photo shoots coming up week after next. And
Wow,
and there'll be another little baking book to sit beside the first one. So together you'll be able to get like a real snapshot of nearly everything we made at Beatrix.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's in similar style to the first
Similar
book,
style,
just extended
Yep.
the recipes that didn't make the first book.
That's right. And also some new ones that have been given to me by the baking gods while my creativity has returned.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
One of the simplest, but often one of the hardest cakes to perfect for the novice baker is the sponge cake.
The sponge,
we love in Australia, of course, so dearly, but it is tricky. So what's the Nat Paull
Well,
method?
my tried and true method is to build a meringue first. So egg whites, lots of sugar beaten in, whipped in gradually. And then to that base, you fold in the egg yolks. It gives you a really, really stable base. Then you fold in your flour. You're very gentle, of course, the whole way through. And then at the end, you hit that batter with some hot milk and butter that's like steamy hot. Just raises the temperature of the batter, so when it goes in, it gets like a really good push from the oven. And it also keeps it really light and soft. Like milk is this like universal softener for batters and doughs. And that way you'll always have a perfect sponge.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. What else are you loving baking at the moment? Now your creative is back, and you're happy to be back in the kitchen.
Well, I'm going to confess that one of my favourite cakes in the world is the caramel mud cake from the big supermarkets.
Great.
And when the shop closed and we were still baking cakes, but I was at home for a few days and without cake. And so I sent my partner down to get one because I'm too embarrassed to buy it at the supermarket myself and get busted for it. But now I told everyone, so now it's out in the open. Okay. So I've wanted to recreate that for ages, but I've never quite got there. But a couple of weeks ago, we just nailed it without using any like chemical sort of caramel flavourings. And I'm so excited to bring that cake into the world because it is just so damn good. And
Oh goodness.
So
you will make a lot of fans with that.
I
Even
think
more
so.
fans.
I think so.
That is
Yeah.
many people's secret guilty pleasure that you've hit upon.
Yeah.
So to give it the Beatrix twist, I think is super exciting.
Yeah. And
when might we get a taste of that?
it might go on the menu for winter. Mm-hmm. So we'll probably put it on because it's more those sort of winter caramelly flavours. And then hopefully I can get the recipe into the book as well. Yeah.
Amazing.
For 2024.
Oh, that's so good. Nat, it's been just so lovely to chat with you this afternoon.
You too.
But just to finish up, we all know that good food, good company is better together. So I'm just wondering what you cook up at home when you're celebrating something special or having someone special over.
So my favourite thing to do is usually like a joint of meat, so something like a shoulder of lamb. And I've just found this Karen Martini recipe where she does a wet brine for the lamb for 24 hours and then slow roast it. Absolute game changer because those like lamb shoulders can be a little bit fatty.
Yes.
And this gives it a depth of flavour, so beautiful. And I like doing things like a little, chopped tomato and green capsicum salad, lots of pomegranate molasses, nice soft fluffy flatbreads, fresh from the oven, homemade. So people can kind of like snick and snack again, like just how they like to do it. Yeah.
The brine, is that just like a 50-50 salt? It's like a wet brine?
Yeah, wet brine. It's really strong as well. Like it was quite, high in salt and like fennel seeds and all of that and stuff in it. It's just so, so good.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that is a game changer. And for those who are listening outside of Australia, Karen Martini is one of Australia's most iconic chefs. She's on the TV, but has been cooking for 3 decades and cooks amazingly accessible, foolproof recipes. I
They're
think.
foolproof and
Yeah.
they're so tasty,
Yep.
and they become instant like repertoire, like solid repertoire recipes. Yeah.
Great. You've added another one onto mine now, so thank you for that. And thanks so much for joining us, Nat.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to you for listening. So you don't miss an episode, follow Food for Thought wherever you get your podcasts. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, or even if you haven't, we'd still love to hear from you. Drop us a line at foodforthought@mryum.com, or better still, leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you have a burning question you'd like one of our industry experts to tackle, or have someone you'd love to hear on the show, do let us know. This podcast is proudly presented by Mr. Yum, the industry-leading growth platform that provides the ingredients for venues around the world to serve, connect with, and reward their customers. Remember, as an industry, we are all better together, and coming together helps the industry and everyone in it to grow. I'm Dan Stock. Please join me next time for another yummy installment of Food for Thought.